Thank you for joining us again for our second installment of our video blog talking about community projects and priorities, keeping with our commitment in making sure that information is out there and it's vetted in a way where you can hear it directly from the mayor. We have a great partnership certainly with our print media, whether that's the Stevens Point Journal, the Portage County Gazette, or the Stevens Point City Times, but they also have space that of course they're constrained to. I want to be able to expand on some of the projects that we're talking about so you, as community members, get a chance to hear it directly from the mayor, which I think is important because there are perspectives that I would very much want to share with you that in many instances will not be appropriately reflected in smaller news articles as you may read them. There are two big projects that we're moving forward with as a community. One is a senior housing development on the Lullaby site, which of course is directly north of the Centerpoint Mall on Centerpoint Drive in downtown Stevens Point. And we're also moving forward with a mixed-use development on the former Cooper Motors site, whereby there would be two commercial properties front-loaded on Division Street and then a large student housing complex on that site as well. And I want to talk about, as I did in my first video blog segment, talking about TIF districts, how they work, the different types of TIF districts, I want to talk about why TIF is so important to be leveraged for these exact types of projects and why we as a community need to use those tools to get this type of growth and development where we need it, on vacant sites that are already using existing utilities and existing roadways. Let's start with the Lullaby site in downtown. In essence, the project that we have, which is available right here on the website for you so you can see the site plan and also take a look at the elevations that are being proposed. This, in essence, when completely built out, will be between an $8 and $10 million project for the city of Stevens Point. If you notice by the site plan, we're taking one-story patio homes and we're pushing those north along the Portage Street side. We wanted to do that for a very important reason. If you look at that site plan, you'll notice that all of the parking is within the center of that project. We wanted to prioritize the architecture and the uniqueness of the buildings that we're building as opposed to just the vehicle. By keeping those one-story, three-family homes pushed along Portage Street, we insulate the very nice, very quaint, single-family neighborhood to its north. And those were a lot of the concerns that had been vetted previously by neighbors in the area, by others who had questioned moving forward with housing on that site. We wanted to make sure that if we were going to move forward with a multi-story development for that site, that the multi-story component of that was front-loaded towards Centerpoint Drive and 3rd Street. And I think, as you can see by this site plan, we've, in essence, really been successful in doing that. Folks did not want student housing on that particular site. They were very, very clear with that. And they also wanted the city to minimize the amount of TIF incentives that we were using for housing on this site. What we are going to do is the component for this project, in essence, is turning over the land to the developer for $1 and also being able to environmentally remediate that site, which does have some challenges. Tetrachloroethylene is an issue on this particular site, as is lead concentration. So there's going to need to be added excavation. There's going to need to be added environmental remediation that has to happen to these sites. But for the use of TIF incentives and engaging as a community on behalf of the developer to ensure that these projects move forward, these projects would not naturally happen on their own. And that's important to remember because, as we talked about in our first video blog series, we discussed the importance of revitalization TIF districts. These are areas where we need to inject attention. In essence, the free market sort of leaves these challenged properties behind. It becomes the role of government to inject with the tools that we're given to incent development to happen on these areas. And that's exactly what we're able to do. The city stepped up, acquired this site. Now, in exchange for a base value that needs to be generated in terms of increment of between $5.5 and $6 million for this site, that gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility to help this developer get in on this land and also environmentally remediate it. Because of the size and value of this project, we're also able to recoup all of the amount of money that the taxpayers paid for the land in the first place, cover all of the environmental remediation necessary via the very taxes that this developer will be paying on their project. This project will be paying the exact same amount of tax in the TIF district as they would if they were out of the TIF district. But the great part of this is it helps us revitalize an area where we desperately need this focus. Now, a lot of folks that are against these projects will say the city simply doesn't need any more housing, and the city shouldn't be in the business of subsidizing housing. Well, what we're really in the business of is ensuring we use the tools we have to be able to drive development and the type of development that we need in key areas. One needs but look down south to the village of Plover to understand that when we decide as a community to look behind and past the opportunities we have for housing, they will be built within 5 or 6 miles of us, but they won't be built in the city of Stevens Point. These projects will be built. It's a question of where they'll be built. And if the city knows that it needs development at its core, it needs infill in its core, let's use the tools that we have to make sure that that project happens where we most need it collectively as a community, which right now is in our city center and ultimately on North Division Street. 2 vacant parcels, the Cooper Motors site as well as the Lullaby site, that need environmental attention. The TIF district gives us those tools to work with the developer to get that energy where we need it. And that's what's special about TIF districts, specifically revitalization TIF districts. It helps us inject those projects where we need it. These projects are exactly what we need. The difference today versus downtown of even 15 years ago is the fact that downtown is no longer the retail destination of Portage County. That changed when the Centerpoint Marketplace became very challenged, and arguably Crossroads Commons became very successful. So we have to change the strategy. Mid-State Technical College is a great example. Injecting a college, injecting all of those students within downtown creates traffic, it creates interest. But we need people to be living and working in downtown 24/7. 55 and older housing is exactly the right component for a growth strategy in terms of how you revitalize your city center. So we feel with Mid-State and this senior housing project that we have a great mix in terms of how we can move forward. And unfortunately, without the land being in play and knowing that the city will be able to give these developers a clean environmental slate, no development will ever happen on that site. And that's why we have a revitalization TIF in place to ensure that we get that growth rather than having another large senior housing project, much like the Windsor, which is a beautiful project, but it also happens to be in the village of Plover. This project, the senior housing project that you've taken a look at the site plan, is very much like Windsor. So if we know that there's a market for these types of projects, and we know that obviously they're going to be built somewhere in the vicinity, let's take the tools we have as a community and let's get these where we most desperately need it. And that, I think, is the message, especially with Lullaby, that we want to share with you today. It's the same example with Cooper Motors. We want mixed-use approach to how we redevelop along North Division Street. Elements where we have retail and where we have commercial working in harmony with residential projects at the same time. To me, that's the growth strategy that I certainly studied in my urban planning courses, and I think we've also adopted comprehensively within our comp plan, as well as some of our eco-municipality initiatives as a community. Let's take those students out of some of these neighborhoods. Let's work hard to reconvert some of these older multifamily homes that exist in our urban core. Let's get them back into single-family homes, and let's get the university students in an area where they're walkable to the university, where we take that pressure off of a lot of the parking that we experience around UWSP right now. And let's work hand in hand with the university as they grow their student population to be in excess of 10,000 students. These students are yearning for new opportunities and, I would argue, new choices in housing, better choices, well-equipped, Wi-Fi equipped, safer. I think it's our role to certainly be able to use the economic development tools we have to get massive, cohesive developments that allow for a complete corridor to change its face to happen, and to be able to use the incentives that we have as a community to pull that off. That's what the Cooper project really ultimately exemplifies more than anything, as does the Lullaby project that we're working on with the same developers. It's injecting development and investment in areas where we want to see it as a community in our urban core, as opposed to the developments happening at our periphery. So I really ask that you engage as a community to say, we do want this development, we do want this investment. The other element that I want to leave you with is specifically the sheer amount of growth in our downtown TIF district that the senior housing complex could provide. At between $8 and $10 million of value, the amount of TIF collections that we would be receiving in downtown off that project have the potential to offset our mall borrowing that we comprehensively passed through a referendum by nearly 1/2. Right now, 100% of the debt service burden of the mall borrowing is being borne, in essence, bared by the taxpayer. This one project that takes that much energy and investment and puts it into downtown can offset your tax burden for the mall borrowing by 1/2. And as other projects continue in downtown, as we continue to refurbish the Center Point Marketplace and have more growth and increased assessments within downtown, the TIF collections will continue to increase. And our goal is to make sure that all of the tax burden for the mall borrowing is paid for by the downtown TIF district. Right now, we can have a project that will, in essence, take away between 40 and 60% of that debt service burden. That's why I push so hard for these projects. It isn't that I necessarily just want apartments, as of course I've been accused of most often by many. The key is we need a comprehensive growth strategy that has different pieces to it. We're building new clinics as we speak. We're building new convenience stores. We're building new fast food restaurants. We're building new offices as well. Jobs, new growth, reinvestment is one entire economic development strategy. Apartments, where we most need them, need to be a key economic development strategy for our community as well. The Cooper Motor Project, as well as the Lullaby Project, provide us with that opportunity. So I hope that clarifies perhaps more directly from me to you why we feel these development projects are important. They harness a lot of principles. Sheer tax collection in downtown is a one. That's big. The other big difference is it's taking an environmentally contaminated site, remediating it, and making it something special, using a demographic opportunity for downtown that we don't have right now. And that's a concentration of people being in downtown. That's what we need to have. The same exact situation exists with a different demographic, but perfectly applicable for the Division Street corridor, and that's using student housing as that catalyst, along with complementary commercial development on the same site. I think ultimately we know that we need to revitalize and send messages to people when they come to our community that we're growing and that we're vibrant. Specifically on Division Street, as we have parents who come in and visit our community who are interested in bringing their students to our university, we have to put our best foot forward, and that means giving these students new housing opportunities, quality housing opportunities, and that we're projecting on our major corridors the fact that we are strong. We are certainly growing even amidst difficult economic times. We have to have those aesthetics to be able to make sure that the message is comprehensive for folks when they come and visit our community. That's what we need. So I hope that you'll stand and support those projects. And even if you don't, I hope that my chance to share some of this with you better explains why we pursue these types of projects. Thank you for joining me, and look forward to more video blog segments as we continue. Thank you.